I started when I was 18, a bit of an old man compared to him. I was training to be a doctor at Oxford. Like most students, I spent all my time having parties, and so they were going to kick me out. And a friend and I decided we'd go to the local nightclub and hold our parties there. And then he came up with the idea of charging money on the door to our guests. So on the first night, 1980, I arrived 20 minutes early, and there was a queue of at least 20 people. And I think in that split second I decided, forget being a doctor, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. It's been downhill ever since. No, not really. I worked in a bank for a few years, not unlike UBS. Decided that wasn't me. In the meantime, I was using every hour available, weekends, evenings, holidays. I didn't take any holidays. Plotting and moonlighting with various ventures. I got involved in diet software business, restoring cassette class, theatre set building. All of those were a disaster. However, I had caught the bug. And one thing I had learned is that failures are rarely fatal and most are unimportant, especially in the long run. You can have quite a few. I like to call them tough lessons. As an example, there was a time a few years ago I owned a business called Belgo, Moule Friet, Belgian beer business, and in a fit of hubris we decided we should open a branch in New York. So we spent $5 million doing that, but we got everything wrong. We had a US joint venture partner who went into Chapter 11, that's bankruptcy, about a week before we opened. We sited it about 5 years too early in an up-and-coming area of New York. We didn't use union labour to build the place, so on the opening night the construction workers from the union picketed our entrance with a giant 25-foot inflatable rat, so none of the guests could get in. So anyhow, we lost all our money on that. And then it cost me a lot more money than that, actually. I thought I could single-handedly turn around the book-selling business. So I bought an ailing bookshop chain called Borders, but I hadn't really factored on taking on Amazon, the supermarkets and e-books and so forth, and that was a disaster. I lost all my money on that. However, I keep pressing on. And on the upside, my life changed in 1993. At the time I was a 30-year-old with an overdraft, but I had ideas, and a friend and I managed to convince the owners of PizzaExpress that we should buy their business, even though we had no money. And for some reason or other they agreed to this. At the time it wasn't a very big business. It had 12 owned restaurants and a couple of dozen franchises. And over the next 8 years or so we grew it about 20-fold. We took it public, the shares went public at 40p, peaked at £9. And interestingly we had three competitors at the time, two of which, Deep Pan Pizza and Pizza Land, proceeded to go bust, which shows that we were doing something right. So on the back of that, I used that as a springboard. I got involved in a business called Integrated Dental Holdings, which became the UK's largest chain of dental surgeries. I created a business called Strada from scratch. Got involved with Giraffe. We sold that earlier this year to Tesco, much to my sadness, but my partners wanted some money. So, and 7 years ago, I bought control of Patisserie Valerie, which at the time had been going since 1926. It only had 6 branches, and we now have about 130, and we're opening about 1 a fortnight. That business this year should make about £15 million profit. So, it's only by being an entrepreneur that these opportunities and adventures have been possible. I think that if you want freedom, if you want independence, I think there's nothing better. I think if you have got energy and ambition, then, as David said, you shouldn't settle for a life of regrets. I think you should go for it. As Lawrence of Arabia said, all men dream, but unequally. Those that dream at night in the dusty recesses of their minds awake the next day to find that their dreams were mere vanity. But those who dream during the day with their eyes wide open are dangerous men. They act out their dreams and make them reality. And I think in the modern world that applies equally to women. I think I see more and more women in every audience of would-be entrepreneurs and actual entrepreneurs I talk to, and I think this will certainly become the most entrepreneurial generation ever in this country, and I think that's a great thing for our economy, for people's satisfaction, for their sense of creativity, and I applaud all those people who are going to start their own business.
As a serial entrepreneur, what are your top tips for someone starting out in business?
Never give a personal guarantee. Always work with partners, in my experience. I think you will find that more people are successful who don't do it just for the money. They do it because they believe in the product, or they want to convince their customers to buy their product, or they want autonomy. In my experience, people who are in it just for the money are not the most successful.
And having heard David's talk, actually, what are your thoughts about manufacturing in Britain?
I've had a few manufacturing businesses. I've got one now. The thing about manufacturing is mostly it doesn't use as many people as it did. Automation has sort of taken it over. I think it's still about 12% of UK's GDP, so it's still very important. And I think if you know, we want to generate tangible exports, and if we want to have you know, pride in our own products, then I think we should celebrate manufacturing and indeed embrace it. I think as countries like China and India, their costs rise, particularly labour, then you know, we will become steadily more competitive, particularly in high value added areas. And I think Made in Britain still has a resonance and credibility with the public. So I think, you know, probably more of us should be in manufacturing in a bigger way, and I guess I broadly approve of the idea of a bit of rebalancing of the economy, not by, I think, taking away from services, but by perhaps a bit more effort and investment in manufacturing.
And do you think that it's good to be narrow?
No. I think one of the joys of what I do is I can do various different things, and that's what I enjoy. I think I would easily get bored if I only did one thing. It probably detracts from whatever I achieve, because I think I don't have perhaps the focus and concentration that would, you know, achieve more. But I enjoy the variety, and you know, it evens out the roller coaster that is inevitable if you stick to just one thing. So there's a sort of strength in diversity, I suppose, and it suits my personality to have a spread of interests.
Do you describe yourself as a risk taker?
Yeah, definitely. I work with a very small team of colleagues, all of whom I think are accountants, and their main job is to restrain me when I get overexcited, because that's when I go and do mad things like buy borders. I didn't listen to them and, well, paid the price. Occasionally, of course, it can make sense. When we bought Patisserie Valerie, that didn't appear to be making any money either, but I believed in the brand and I saw some potential in it, even though I couldn't sort of express it in a spreadsheet. So it's proved. I think you need in a team one big risk taker who will do the slightly mad thing, because I think that most entrepreneurs, particularly those who have breakthroughs in any industry, they can't follow the crowd. They have to be very radical and almost extreme in their hunger to be nonconformist, and that means taking unreasonable risks, and of course many fall by the wayside. It's the very nature of the game. But I think in this age of internet, it's much easier to experiment, it's much cheaper, it's much quicker. So I think in many ways that's one of the reasons why now should be a time of more entrepreneurship, because in a way the game is much easier.
What's the best piece of advice you ignored?
So does that mean I should have taken the advice?
Yeah.
well, I guess buying bad businesses, and I bought loads of those. You know, actually, what's cost me even more is selling things far too early. So I sold Pizza Express too early. I sold Integrated Dental Holdings too early. I think one thing I have learned is that I'm only really going to sell businesses that I'm involved with now if it's up to me when I want to. I think in the past I've generally listened to my partners and gone along with what they wanted. And you know, very often being more patient and being stubborn, if you're convinced it's a good business, you will eventually get a much better price.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.